Hello and welcome to Dining with History, where each night we have a different guest, who we engage ourselves with and learn more about. Tonight our guest is the history of the PTSA. Our goal tonight is to dig deeper than has ever been dug before. And, without further ado, the history of the PTSA. Bon appetit.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not
I have a dream
what your country
that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed.
When Christopher Columbus first sailed the ocean blue in 1492, not only did he come to discover and claim the land that we call home, he also came with an idea. An idea that any and all parents could participate in supporting their children's education.
Many people thought that Columbus's idea of having parents involved in their children's education wasn't practical. It actually was a waste of time. And in some ways, they were correct. There was no formal education at the time. I mean, we were just a baby of a nation.
The first school was established in Boston, Massachusetts in 1635, and that, my friends, was the beginning of formal education in America.
After the very first schools were built, there was no way for American parents to be involved in their children's schools.
People rioted in the streets. Without parent-teacher unity, there was chaos. There's no other way to say it.
What's going on in our schools? When's curriculum night? What is curriculum night? Should we be donating money? Today, parents that aren't involved still ask these questions. You know, it's easier to find out the answers now because we have the Cougar Paws Bulletin. They can just look at the website. I mean, imagine if we had that capability during Paul Revere's time. I mean, instead of running up and down the streets yelling, "The British are coming, the British are coming," you know, he could have been writing about it in the Cougar Paws Bulletin, along with upcoming school events. It's a lot simpler.
Oh, the British are coming, and curriculum night is in 2 weeks.
After the rioting in the streets subsided and half the country was in flames, Rosa Parks came out and said, "Why don't we try what Christopher Columbus had in mind? Why don't we create a parent-teacher association?"
Originally, they wanted to call it the Fellowship of the School. But J.R.R. Tolkien, author of The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings, threatened to sue, so they just called it the Parent-Teacher Student Association.
Ulysses S. Grant was appalled by the lack of funding for teachers and parents in need, so he donated his own money to help them achieve their goals.
Since then, the PTSA has continued to give needy parents and teachers grants to help the students' education.
After that, George Washington came forward and said, why stop there? Why don't we create scholarships for the students who are graduating from our education system and reward them? I mean, they're the future, right?
George was ridiculed at first. The idea of giving extra money to successful students, that was outrageous. But over time, people eased up on the idea and it became integrated into the system through scholarships. I personally think George's idea is what makes America the great country it is today.
On their westward expedition, Lewis and Clark brought with them the idea of the PTSA, and it was on this very spot right here, that Lewis looked at Clark and said, "Clark, the PTSA will flourish like a flower in this soil." And if you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of that momentous occasion today. John Hancock, well famous for signing the Constitution of the United States in large, bold handwriting, was also quite famous for coming up with the school directory, which helped facilitate communication.
The issue is that no one could communicate. There was no directory to help people contact each other. I mean, how is Jimmy going to ask Sarah to prom without her phone number? The directory really helped solve those problems.
It's been a staple of the PTSA ever since, and it's brought the community closer together.
Incoming students were very confused until John Hancock came up with the idea of Sophomore Link Night, which helped ease the transition of students into high school life.
So the legend goes that one night John Hancock was practicing his signature, as he always does, and he presses a little too hard and his pen breaks. And he leans down to pick up his pen, because he wants to put it back together, and he pricks his thumb. He pricks his thumb at the end. And he's looking at his thumb, and at that moment, he's thinking, how can we help the incoming sophomores, the confused sophomores at our high school? And on that night, he came up with Sophomore Link Night.
Abraham Lincoln, while only a child, experienced a traumatic fire experience. Not wanting any other child to experience the same experience he experienced, fought with all his experience to have emergency supplies placed in each classroom.
Originally, Abraham Lincoln was a very stubby man, but it is said that for every noble thing he did, he grew taller.
Well, when Lincoln came out and said that schools should have emergency supplies, it was like the whole world stopped for a moment. And some speculated that on that day, he grew 6 inches taller to be the man we know and love today.
Even though schools seemed to be booming with their emergency supplies and delicious lunches, teachers and staff didn't feel quite right.
The staff felt underappreciated and hungry. This did not make for good working conditions.
So who's going to take care of us? Who is going to fix this problem? Well, they often found themselves asking that question, but it turned out to be none other than John Smith. He actually made them huge feasts in celebration for their dedication and their strives in taking school to the next level.
It was really like the first Thanksgiving, but for teachers.
Teacher and staff morale really grew after that. Because of John Smith, there is now teacher appreciation breakfast in every school district across the country.
I think it was actually JFK who said, "Ask not what the PTSA can do for you, ask what you can do for the PTSA."
Research has shown that volunteers are the backbone of the PTSA. No volunteers, no PTSA. It's that simple.
Throughout history, the PTSA has evolved into what it is today. Without your support, our students and staff will be left in the dark. Please continue to support the PTSA with your time and donations, and you too can change history. And that concludes tonight's adventure.
The PTSA is what's made America the great country it is today. Please help by donating your funds to this great cause.